New Year's Eve, 2018, with my navy blue inflatable mattress sitting comfily on a mostly empty floor outside of the computer desk and a few boxes out of the mini left in storage, only to make their way into our 18 acquired Kentucky home, stood me walking aimlessly back and forth as I tend to in any room with even the minimal space to do so. Despite rarely using Discord for the past few months, I decided to meet my equally late 18 acquired friend, No Thank You, for a call in what began as a short live stream, or at least an attempt at one among friends of his in his fan Discord. I think one of them made fun of me for being a Windows user on one of my computers, and I deserved that. Anyway, there was this guy who showed up to the VC to brag about killing a Native American at the border with a hammer, before going on about how attractive the Muslim women he teaches English to are. He offered to buy me a gun once I identified myself as mentally ill, under the context that had been established of us living in the same state. I had trouble pushing my words out during the call, as I did in any Discord at the time, but wanted the company of people who all knew it was a new year and were ready to say things about that. I doubt I would have taken my phone-handed pacing to their server if I had easy access to a live New Year's special that didn't stink of Reddit or daytime television. I didn't want to be alone on a day my brain still imbued with some significance as a day different from other days that only comes once a year. Shortly after exiting the call, a haze of faint embarrassment I pushed back into the recesses of my mind, combined with a visceral sort of emotional empathy for a hammer-smashed face victim I had no relation to nor did I know, combined with a newfound paranoia that the hammer Muslim gun guy would spot me in public somehow. My father was blasting My Way and then New York by Frank Sinatra, jokingly calling them something along the lines of my theme songs only less than a month ago, even complimenting me for making it there when I can now make it anywhere. His tone was kinderly and conciliatory, as though a great tragedy could be forgotten now with laughter. 12 a.m., it was a new year. I ran away from home in early December of 2018, not long after first settling into a living situation comprised of my mother, father, and sister in an unfamiliar home in a Kentucky town I can best describe as the place we went across the border to buy cheaper groceries when I was a child. Although this specific part I was in, now surrounded by blacks, painted a picture different than the Walmart I had once associated it with. It was a household joke that we were living in the ghetto. It became an even bigger one when my mother had part ways with us in 2019, only to live in an even worse part of the ghetto, wherein gunshots could readily be heard whilst attempting to sleep, mostly because the months leading up to that climax were filled with her shouting about how better off she would be managing things on her own. Yeah. Speaking of blacks, did I ever mention how despite making up 13% of the population, African Americans, or as I call them, Jungle Gym jigaboos, commit 50% of crimes? Anyway, I ran away to the Sinatra place at the very beginning of the year, hiding my bag in a bush early in the morning in case someone woke up and I was seen with a backpack on. Out the door, gone. 2 cars, vroom vroom, 2 metros, 1 ticket, skeet skeet. I arrived at a homeless shelter for LGBT people after having walked around their facility that blended in with vaguely abandoned buildings covered up by tarps, and a beckoning sight of cars signaling as though they were rattling against one another. It took me a while to get there, as I ended up going up an elevator to their office building, which redirected me to an entirely different part of an already way too large city, wherein nothing works and everything appears as though it is cobbled together with tape to barely keep it from falling down, or a billion-dollar skyscraper that is made of glass so it will eventually fall down. Upon being nearly immediately admitted due to my age, by immediately I mean waiting in a lobby for a few hours in between pacing up and down the streets outside to eventually be greeted by a woman asking me for $1 for marijuana inside, and I obliged, I got myself registered and sat alone and anxious amongst a giant crowd of mostly minority and I almost said ignorant, and immigrant, gays, and trans people. It was nerve-wracking being around that much noise. I slept on a cot that night surrounded by people. Because I was a minor with an ongoing investigation into my whereabouts in another state, the police came to the shelter to bring me to a facility where children who run away or commit crimes are sent to be shuffled into other facilities or to home. The police took me to a hospital first to get evaluated, and I waited a long time. With my belongings locked away in a safe, I waited in the lobby of this child facility for an entire day, witnessing a struggling mother with her daughter running away to be with a criminal father and sabotaging her mother where she could. This story appeared to be believable to me upon observing the daughter and weighing the consistency of both stories in their conversation. I walked over to comfort her in a stupor of phoneless curiosity and human empathy, giving her a hug and saying that her daughter, who she continually said did not love her, did in fact love her, but was in a confusing situation where she had to pick between two parents, one of which was actively manipulating her decision-making. I told her not to blame herself. She hugged me more deeply and cried. My social worker came over to call me over, and then the woman asked me as I got up if I had to go get my kid. I said, "No, I am the kid." We both laughed as I got escorted away. I noticed something different about the people I was staying with in the pen. Unlike other cages I had been in with children, these kids fought each other physically as many times as they added the word "breh" to their sentences where it didn't fit grammatically, which was every sentence. But here, the staff slammed you against the wall if you fought in front of them. No one cared. I stayed perfectly still in my bed pretending to sleep for as long as I possibly could, missing breakfast every time because of it, till someone from staff had to tell me to leave early in the afternoon. After hearing one guy yelling how "Jesus loves you, breh" before attacking the other kid, I thought I would join the one Asian kid, us being the single different ethnicities out of the whole group, and being inoffensive to everyone around by looking indifferent, without fear, straight ahead each time a fight happened, even if it was right behind me. The few things I did say were oriented towards peacefulness and the Bible. I minded my own business, and much to my surprise, when comparing that experience to every other experience I had with kids up to that point, minding my own business had me being left alone rather than placing an instant target on my back. That wasn't the first thing I noticed that was different from the kids I knew. When I was sitting with other people at lunch one day, the topic of GTA 5 came up. I remember kids all in my school really liked Trevor, the crazy redneck-esque one. Here, everyone liked Franklin and sometimes Michael. I was told Trevor was gay and was made fun of for saying he was cool. My mind instinctually went to the opinion that would make me more accepted with people in the past. These were not those people. Quietness was clearly the ideal strategy from there on out. After something like 4 days of waiting and generally avoiding meals or group activity of any sort, my family picked me up. I went home that December, and New Year's soon followed a few weeks later. After having a very fast move from my home of 16 years to avoid a potential police investigation after having accidentally spilled the beans on an unrelated family member molesting me to a healthcare worker across 5 states, a mother constantly telling me that the preceding molestation was somehow my fault, going as far as yelling at me for it with intermittent threats on her own life at the helm, of which I had to talk her down from once in the middle of a street, dabbling in antipsychotic medications that worsened my already decimated relationships with the few friends I had, and emotional state hanging by a thread, laundromats being cool and reflecting on 4 walls moved by the passage of time now, witnessing my dog ran over in front of me by a guy who initially stopped, then sped up, with the dog still in his line of sight, and now running away to the Big Apple to essentially be in prison with constant fights. And that wasn't even half of the shit that made 2018 undoubtedly the worst year of my life. I wanted the next year to be calmer. When 2019 became the best year of my life with a few traumatic setbacks, 2020 went on to top it in a way I couldn't have possibly imagined, with old friendships rekindled from an era I thought surely killed them, to new friends who have helped me through aspects of myself I never thought would go on to be understood or be in the process of fixing, to a relationship that's sure to bring at least one of my best memories to the coming year. I both have more tools for self-betterment than ever, and more of it done than ever. Remember my long-lasting fear of eventual economic instability and homelessness? Let's just say Uncle Sam saw a few screws that needed financial help in the time of their filling. Remember that drunk live stream where I said I wanted to kill myself because I couldn't ever be a girl? Well, in addition to coming out, I was given a pill for that. In 2019, I said it can't get much better than this, and in 2020, I was happily proven wrong with the same sentiment as the previous year now echoing in my mind once again at the tail end of 2020. So with this I leave you. 2021, when I'm wrong, bring it on.